Imagine this. You step off a plane and bam, you're in a city you've never seen. The air feels different, the sounds are new, everything you see is unfamiliar. Your heart's probably racing, right? Excitement, but maybe a little bit of fear too. If that sounds familiar, well, this deep dive is definitely for you. For the traveler, the explorer, the person ready to jump into an unknown place using English.
Yeah, that feeling, that immediate immersion, it's intense. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're sort of following the journey, looking at real travel stories, especially how someone actually uses English, from the moment they arrive right through to reflecting back at the end of the day.
Okay.
Our mission really is to pull out the practical stuff, yes, the phrases, but also those mindset shifts, the little insights that can turn learning English from a chore into, well, a real adventure.
And hopefully what you'll get from this isn't just a list of words. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe a way to get informed quickly about using English confidently when you're actually out there traveling.
Exactly. And discovering how those mistakes, those moments you might feel awkward about, they can actually be where you make real connections.
Ah, that's interesting.
It's not just about grammar rules or vocabulary lists stuffed in your brain. It's about finding your own voice, even when you're somewhere totally new.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Arrival. That feeling when the plane doors open, unfamiliar signs, maybe hearing a language that just sounds like music you don't know the tune to yet.
Right.
Excitement, fear.
Yeah, and our sources really emphasize this idea. You're an explorer, not just ticking off sites. So right there, in that first moment, what's the English challenge?
Okay, what is it?
It's finding those first words. They act like your compass, almost. Even before you leave the airport, simple things like, well, like, excuse me, could you help me? Or even just, I'm looking for.
Right, just basics.
They might not be perfect, but they keep you moving forward. They're your anchors in that first wave of unfamiliarity.
That makes a lot of sense. So building on that, what about phrases like, could you show me on the map? Or how far is it? Are those the immediate tools, that verbal compass keeping you pointed sort of in the right direction?
Definitely. They're practical, direct, and then, okay, you manage to get outside. You step onto the street, and whoosh,
Yeah.
cars honking, people rushing past, maybe bright neon signs flashing. It can be the total sensory overload. And then that feeling hits. Okay, now what? Where am I actually going? Hotel, metro, just need a coffee. And that's usually when the first real English interaction happens. Like one story we looked at involved asking for directions to the city center.
Okay.
And the local person spoke really fast, But the traveler managed to catch keywords, bus, number, stop, maybe 20 minutes. And that's the key insight here.
What's that?
Communication isn't always about understanding every single word perfectly. It's about grabbing the core message. And honestly, just the relief of getting through that first exchange. That's a huge mental win, not just language practice.
Right. You survived. And it sounds like maybe the big thing isn't understanding everything, but how you deal with not understanding. What's the mindset shift someone needs there?
It's about seeing vulnerability as okay, maybe even a strength. The research, the stories, they consistently show that saying things like, I'm sorry, could you say that again, isn't weakness. Or, could you speak a bit slower, please? People actually respond well to that. Even something really open, like, I'm new here, I don't know the area very well.
Yeah.
It shows you're trying, you're engaging, and often it doesn't just get you the answer, it gets you, well, help, sometimes even a smile or a longer chat. It's an invitation, really.
That's such a different way of looking at it, that getting lost isn't failing. Can you say more about that? About how those unexpected wrong turns can actually be good?
Yeah, it flips the script, doesn't it? Real communication isn't about having a perfect plan and never stumbling. It's about navigating the stumbles. Like, there's this example. Someone gets on a bus, feeling pretty good about themselves, then looks out the window and realizes nothing looks familiar. Panic starts to set in.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. But then they make the decision to ask again, lean over and say, sorry, is this bus going to the city center? And the person nods yes. That wave of relief.
Huge.
It's massive, but It's more than just finding the right bus. It shows that getting lost isn't the end of the world. It often pushes you to use your English again, to observe more closely. It's actually part of the discovery process.
So to make that easier, to make asking feel more automatic,
Hmm.
the advice is to actually practice saying these things out loud, like literally saying, excuse me, does this bus stop at, or could you tell me when to get off? Or just to yourself?
Exactly. It builds that muscle memory so the words come out easier when you're actually, a bit stressed.
Okay. And then success. You arrive, you get off the bus, maybe in the city center, and suddenly you're surrounded by old buildings, narrow streets, maybe colorful signs, people laughing outside cafes, street musicians playing.
Yeah. And for a moment, that fear you felt earlier, it kind of evaporates. You're right there in the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the English practice shifts again.
Mm-hmm.
It goes beyond just asking for things. The accounts we read really stress feeling the moment and finding your own words for it.
How so?
Describe what you see, even if it's just quietly to yourself. Wow, the streets are so narrow here and full of life. Or, I can smell fresh bread. I love these old buildings. They feel timeless.
So talking to yourself isn't crazy.
Not at all. It's incredibly useful. It's not just learning vocabulary in isolation. You're forcing your brain to think in English, to connect words to your actual experience. And crucially, it starts turning that lingering fear into just curiosity. English becomes your tool for exploring, not just surviving.
Yeah. Okay, so arrival conquered, streets navigated, and then your stomach starts rumbling.
Loudly.
Ha, yeah. The universal reminder, time to eat. Right. So, next challenge, finding food. You spot a place, a bakery, maybe, or a little cafe that looks inviting. The smell of coffee, fresh bread, it pulls you in. How do the sources suggest handling that interaction?
Well, the good news is you don't need super complicated sentences. Keep it simple. Just walking in, nice hi, and then maybe, do you have a menu in English? Or simply, could I see the menu, please?
Okay.
And asking, what do you recommend? That's always a good one. It shows you're open, engages the person working there.
And for ordering?
Again, keep it natural. I'll have the cheese sandwich and a coffee, please. That I'll have is really common and sounds natural. Or maybe, could I also get a bottle of water? Simple, direct.
Now, this is where one of the stories gets really interesting, talking about mistakes. There's an example of someone trying to order a sandwich, but totally butchering the pronunciation.
Right, and you feel that heat rise in your cheeks, maybe.
Oh, yeah, been there.
But what happens? The person behind the counter probably smiles, maybe repeats it correctly for you, and gets you your sandwich. The insight here is huge. Those little mistakes, they're not actually embarrassing moments to avoid. They're connection points.
How do you mean connection points?
Well, think about it. The local person sees you making an effort, right? You share a tiny moment of vulnerability, maybe even a slight chuckle over the mispronunciation. It creates a little shared story, a memory. That's way more valuable than just getting the sentence perfectly right.
Okay, so don't be afraid to stumble.
Exactly. And if you genuinely don't know how to say something, asking is fine. I'm sorry, how do you say this? Pointing politely. Or what's the word for? Even, could you write it down for me? People are usually really happy to teach you a word from their language or help you out.
Okay, so you've got your food, you find a seat, maybe outside the cafe,
Yeah.
and you're just watching the city go by, people on bikes, maybe a couple having a quiet argument, a cat napping in a sunny spot. The advice is to keep describing, right?
Yes. Keep that internal monologue, or even whisper it.
Like, this cafe feels really cozy, or everyone seems pretty relaxed here. I like how all the buildings have balconies. Why is that specific practice so effective?
Well, first, it forces you to think actively in English, not just passively observe. Second, you start using descriptive words, adjectives like cozy, relaxed, busy, that you actually need to talk about experiences. And third, it just builds confidence in producing the language, even if nobody else hears it. You're making English part of how you process the world around you.
And sometimes just sitting there observing, it leads to actual conversations, doesn't it?
It really does. Like someone notices your accent, or maybe you comment on the weather. They might ask, are you visiting?
And you can just reply naturally, yes, I just got here this morning, or Yeah, it's my first time in the city. Simple openings.
Perfect conversation starters. And then you can build on it. Ask them questions back. Show genuine interest. Do you live around here? Any places I absolutely have to see?
Or even, what's your favorite thing about living here? Or maybe, is there anything I should, maybe avoid?
Exactly. People generally love sharing tips about their hometown. It turns a simple observation into a real connection.
Okay, so after eating, refueled, the advice gets bold. Put the map away. Just wander.
Yeah, embrace getting a little lost. That's often how you find the really cool stuff.
Okay.
The tiny hidden bookstore, amazing street art down a side alley, a beautiful little fountain you'd never see
It's
otherwise.
that idea again, isn't it? Not knowing exactly where you are puts you exactly where you need to be for discovery.
Precisely. And it transforms that feeling of being lost. What starts as maybe a little scary, it turns into a kind of game. Every wrong turn is just a potential new discovery. Every small mistake becomes part of the adventure, part of the story you'll tell later.
And even when you are lost and need help, there are polite ways to ask, right? Using phrases like, "Excuse me, could you help me? I think I'm lost." Or, "Could you point me towards the train station?" Why does adding "I think" or "could you" make such a difference?
It just softens it. It's politeness, really. It changes it from a demand, tell me where the station is, into a request. Makes it seem more approachable, less demanding.
And the sources also suggest going beyond just saying, "I'm lost," to try and describe how you're feeling.
Yes, this really enriches your English. Instead of just, I'm lost, maybe try, I feel a bit nervous, but also kind of excited. Or, it's confusing trying to find my way, but it's so beautiful here. Or even, I actually love not knowing what's just around the next corner.
Why is expressing emotion important here?
Because it makes your English more human, more relatable, richer. It connects the language directly to your internal state. And this whole process reinforces that core idea. Tourists might just look, but travelers see. And by speaking even just to yourself, narrating your experience,
Yeah.
you're not just practicing English anymore. You're truly living in English.
Okay, so the day wears on, evening starts to settle in. That frantic energy of the city maybe calms down a bit. It feels different.
Yeah, softer maybe. More secrets seem to come out at dusk. The sunlight changes, shadows get longer. You're not rushing anymore. And maybe, just wandering, you stumble upon a small museum that looks inviting,
Ah, the museum part. So you step inside.
and the noise in the street just fades away. Instantly quieter. You feel the cool air, maybe smell old wood or stone. Notice the high ceilings. The accounts we looked at really highlight museums at these places for um, personal reflection, not just ticking off exhibits.
So it's another chance to practice that observational English, but maybe in a different way.
Exactly. Using those natural first impressions again. Wow, it feels so peaceful in here. Or, I love the smell of this place. Old books and stone. It's amazing how much quieter it is than just outside. Again, just saying what you notice, it makes the English feel real, personal to your experience right then.
And then maybe you find yourself in front of a painting. Let's say it's an old bridge, some trees, the colors are soft. The advice isn't just to describe what it is, but how it makes you feel.
Yes, this is a key step towards more expressive language.
Yeah.
Moving beyond it's a bridge to something like it feels calm, almost nostalgic, or there's something a little lonely about it, but still beautiful. Maybe it makes me think of like autumn evenings back home.
Connecting feelings to what you're seeing.
It transforms simple description into nuanced expression. And the sources encourage practicing this out loud, even if quietly. Try describing a photo or painting. The colors here are really soft, almost fading. Or, this feels like a memory somebody had. It really gets your brain and your mouth working together on a deeper level.
And this applies to more than just paintings, right? Like finding a quiet corner with old black and white photos. You might feel a connection to the people in them.
Absolutely. And you can put that into words. Simple phrases like, it makes me wonder about their lives, or what were they thinking, when this photo was taken. It feels strange seeing these moments just frozen in time like this.
And what's the value of doing that linguistically?
Well, you're practicing more complex ideas, aren't you? You're using past tense naturally, talking about feelings, engaging your imagination. It pushes you beyond just basic transactional English.
And then maybe you find a bench, just sit quietly for a bit, and let the words come that are really personal.
Exactly. Words spoken just for yourself. Like, wow, I'm a long way from home right now, but I don't actually feel alone. Or the quiet in here feels like a warm blanket. Maybe even realizing, travel isn't always about the places you go. Sometimes it's about finding things out about yourself. That's English coming straight from the heart.
That's quite profound. And even in that quiet space, small interactions can happen. Maybe someone is sketching nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. A simple compliment. Wow, your drawing is beautiful. Or asking, how long have you been sketching? It can open up a little conversation.
And you can use those same follow-up questions that we talked about earlier.
For sure. Do you come here often? What's your favorite painting or piece in this museum? I really love how quiet it is in here, don't you? Even a brief chat like that builds your confidence and might lead to a nice, unexpected connection.
So you eventually leave the museum, stepping back out, and the evening has fully arrived. The sky's a deep blue, city lights are on, maybe reflecting on wet streets if it rained. Music might be drifting from somewhere.
And the city feels different again, doesn't it? Softer, somehow more familiar than it did that morning. And maybe you have this realization, I'm not just visiting anymore. For tonight, at least, I feel like I'm part of this city.
That's a powerful feeling.
Again, the advice is describe it. Speak it aloud. The lights look like stars spilled on the street. The air smells like rain and maybe coffee from that cafe. People are walking slower now, it seems, as if the night makes them dreamier.
Making the English sound more natural, almost poetic, just by saying what you observe.
Because it is natural when it's tied directly to your senses, your experience. And the core message from this whole museum part, this English from the heart idea, it's really powerful. It boils down to mistakes don't really matter that much.
Yeah.
Honest words, even simple ones, they connect with people, your feelings. That's your superpower in communication. You don't need fancy vocabulary to say something true, something beautiful.
So the day is winding down. You've navigated, eaten, maybe gotten lost and found your way, had quiet moments. You've been living in English all day. The city, which felt maybe huge and scary in the morning, now feels manageable, Janeller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The sky's maybe a deep navy now. Streetlights cast that warm yellow glow. The air feels cool. You might just be walking. No real destination, and that feels okay now.
And you notice different things at night, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. The accounts describe things like the reflections of the streetlights shimmering on wet cobblestones, or shadows stretching along the old walls. Maybe the air smells like rain or those roasted chestnuts. You stumble upon a quiet little square, maybe with a fountain, some benches, a cafe still open late. You look up at the buildings, see balconies with flowers, maybe laundry still hanging, windows glowing. There's a comfort in those unknown stories happening behind the glass.
That's a lovely image. And how can you use this time, this quiet nighttime observation for more English practice? Is it just thinking or?
It's about making those thoughts active, voicing them, even quietly. The sources really push this. Practice your thoughts aloud. I wonder who lives up there behind that window. Or this square feels timeless, like it hasn't changed in 100 years. Even just the sound of that fountain is really calming me down.
Why is speaking the thoughts so important?
Because when you articulate your thoughts, when you narrate your own experience like that, the English becomes deeply yours. It's tied directly to your inner world, your perceptions. It's not just language about something, it's the language of your experience.
And sitting there, maybe on that bench by the fountain, you start reflecting on the whole day's English journey. And you realize, wow, look what I actually did.
It's quite a list when you think about it. Ask strangers for help, managed to order food, even if your voice shook a little, got lost, maybe panicked slightly, but found your way again.
Talk to someone in that quiet museum, sat by yourself, and actually put feelings into English words.
Yeah. The big takeaway is you didn't just visit this city today, you actually lived it, using English as your tool.
And connecting that back.
Yeah.
Why does using English in the real world like this matter so much more than just, say, textbook exercises?
Oh, fundamentally, it builds courage like nothing else. You learn the words and phrases you actually need and use, not just ones from a generic list. And crucially, it creates these really vivid memories that are directly tied to the language itself. Getting that bus, ordering that sandwich, finding that museum. English is part of the memory. That's how it stops being just a subject and starts becoming part of you.
So finally, maybe reluctantly, you head back towards your hotel. Even checking in involves a bit more real-world practice.
Simple, practical stuff. A polite, good evening. Could I have my room key, please? Or maybe asking, do you know if there's anywhere around here still open to get something to eat? Basic, useful interactions.
And then you're back in your room, the sounds of the city are maybe a bit muffled now through the window. And you might just sit there, maybe jot down a few notes.
Exactly. Writing in a notebook or even just typing on your phone. Okay, today I spoke English. Bravely, I think. I got lost, I saw some art, I tasted something new, and you know what? I'm actually pretty proud of myself.
And it's important to acknowledge the imperfections too, isn't it?
Hugely important. Those reflections like, okay, it wasn't perfect English, but it was real. Or, I definitely made some mistakes, but hey, I survived. I spoke English and people actually understood what I meant. The research, the stories, they all emphasize that these thoughts, this self-acknowledgement, matters way more for your confidence and progress than worrying about perfect grammar.
And from that feeling of accomplishment, you can start thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah. Imagining the next day's adventures. Maybe exploring a different part of the city, having new conversations, learning new words, not from a book, but just from, well, from living.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the final message for someone listening? Maybe someone planning a trip or just wanting to make their English more alive.
I think the biggest thing is that learning English, it isn't just a subject you study in a classroom. It really is an adventure waiting to happen. It's about building your voice, finding your words, even if it's just one brave sentence at a time.
And your voice, even if it feels imperfect, it deserves to be heard, right?
Absolutely. So we'd really encourage you, keep noticing the little things around you. Keep talking to yourself, to strangers when the chance comes up. Just talk to the world in English because honestly, every single sentence you try, every interaction you navigate, it brings you closer to not just studying English, but really truly living in it.
And remember, your English doesn't have to be perfect to be absolutely beautiful. Honest words, words that come from your actual experience, your heart, they always connect. So stay brave, keep that curiosity alive, and keep your English alive out there in the world.